Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Guys, I know it's very counterintuitive. We're still in the month of Ramadan, and Ramadan is the month of the Quran. However, lately I've been really obsessed with Hadith. You can find today's Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari 7405 and Sahih Muslim 2675. This particular hadith is a hadith Qudsi, which means it is still wahi, still revelation. Here Allah speaks himself and the Prophet narrates what Allah has spoken. So therefore, let's say it is complementary to the Quran at the very least. My list of favorite hadith is getting bigger and bigger. However, I would definitely say that this hadith is in the top 5 of my most favorite hadith as a revert to Islam. Guys, before we jump into the video, as always, if you enjoy my content, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. Thank you very much for that. And now, with no further ado, let's have a look. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said, "I am as my servant thinks of me. If he thinks good of me, he will have it. If he thinks ill of me, he will have it. I am with him when he remembers me. If he remembers me to himself, I remember him to myself. If he mentions me in a gathering, I mention him in a greater gathering. If he draws near to me by a hand's length, I draw near to him by an arm's length. If he comes to me walking, I come to him running." Absolutely mind-blowing, but as always, guys, disclaimer first, I am just a revert to Islam. I'm not a student of knowledge, let alone some sort of scholar or sheikh. I'm just a guy on the internet learning about Islam myself, sharing my perspective with you. So for real Islamic knowledge, please go to a competent scholar, to a sheikh or whatnot. This is not the place for that. This is just to share my reflections with you as a revert to Islam. So reading this hadith by myself, it brings me back to my past. It catapults me back to my past when I was still spiritually seeking in the Amazon rainforest, in the Buddhist temples of Thailand. I was looking for God. I was searching for God, but seemingly I couldn't find him because I was looking at God as this absolutely absent, unreachable mystery that shall remain a mystery. I was looking at God as the ultimate mystery. And listen, of course, that is true. We cannot really picture Allah. But nevertheless, because I was looking at Allah as this mysterious secret, there was no chance for me to get any closer to Allah at all in this dunya. And therefore I was seeking with psychedelics, meditations and whatnot. And seemingly I went further and further away from God, further away from Allah, because this is how I thought about Allah. However, through Islam, of course, I learned how near Allah truly is to us and what Allah wants from us. And this shifted my perspective of how I thought about Allah. And this brought me so much closer to him. But I don't want to discard all the mystery here now, because this first sentence is actually truly esoteric, is truly mysterious. Let's read it again and think about it. I am as my servant thinks of me. If he thinks good of me, he will have it. If he thinks ill of me, he will have it. So how can that be? On the one hand, we are mere servants, but at the same time, the way that we think of God, our creator, that way he will then behave. This is very counterintuitive, of course, because we do believe in qadr, in the will of Allah, and therefore whatever he decrees shall come. So how can our thought have something to do with that at all? We mere human creatures, right? But if you really think about it, as I said, this is deeply mysterious and this is esoteric knowledge, because it means that we are, to an extent, co-creating our reality here in this dunya. This would correlate then to our free will, of course. The way that we think of God, ultimately we think about life. If we think about God as unjust, unfair, ultimately we'll think about our life as unjust and unfair as well, of course. And like that, we will create our own misfortune. It will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. However, if we think about God in the highest regard, in the highest esteem, and this, of course, what Islam encourages, then we see life in the highest esteem. We look at life positively, and this then transmutes our whole life. And I would really say that this is a secret to success. You can really find everything within Islam. If you're asking yourself, well, why haven't I attracted the right spouse for myself? Or why haven't I become rich yet? You can find it in the first sentence of this hadith. You will have to shift your thoughts and look at books, for example, Think and Grow Rich, the bestseller of Napoleon Hill. There you can read as well how highly successful men, how highly influential billionaires got their riches by thinking and growing rich. This has been a very well kept esoteric secret, but it's out in the open nowadays, and here you can see it as well. It has been around in Islam for over 1,000 years. I truly want you to internalize what you read here to change your life. Then the hadith continues, I am with him when he remembers me. If he remembers me to himself, I remember him to myself. So what can this mean, right? Does Allah need to remember us? Of course not. Allah is all-knowing. He knows everything. Nothing will be out of his sight. He doesn't need to remember you in that sense, right? But what this here is displaying, of course, is that if you have the remembrance of Allah, the dhikr, then of course you draw closer to Allah. This is how you establish the connection to Allah. This is how you align yourself with the will of Allah, which is then in turn, of course, Islam. The true submission to Allah's will happens only when you submit your own will, when you let go of your ego, so to speak. Then the hadith continues, if he mentions me in a gathering, I mention him in a greater gathering. If he draws near to me by a hand's length, I draw near to him by an arm's length. If he comes to me walking, I come to him running. So all of this is absolutely amazing, but of course it is deeply metaphorical. Of course, we know that Allah is not running. He is beyond time and space. And saying an arm's length, it is not that we have to understand it as a literal arm's length, of course. However, the comparison is that if you come closer to Allah a hand's length, he comes closer an arm's length. So even faster, even more efficient is Allah establishing his connection with you. All this means, of course, is that if you repent sincerely to Allah, if you reach out to Allah, Allah will reach out to you in an instant. It will absolutely be instantaneous, of course. It is light. It is easy for Allah. It is not a challenge whatsoever. Quite the opposite, of course. Allah's mercy, Allah's rahmah is so much greater than we can even imagine. And lastly, before ending this video, I want to say that this is, of course, very reminiscent as well of Sufi theology, of deeply spiritual practices that we can find within Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. The non-dualistic worldview, if you will, where everything is interconnected ultimately, and you are an intrinsic part of creation. Life has been breathed into you by Allah himself. So this emphasizes yet again this interconnectedness of everything, this deep intrinsic unity of things, if you will, where your thought has a direct impact on the creation as well, on your life as well. Alright guys, but this is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. Moreover, let me know which other hadiths you love and which other hadiths I could react to here on this channel. Ramadan Mubarak, and as always, may Allah bless you all. Much love and peace.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي